what is this material that you're working with? And like, what's kind of I don't know if there's some kind of secret sauce in there, but like, what is it? What's the base framework of it? And, what I want to eventually get to is why does it work so well? Because this is
Mhm.
pretty fascinating. These papers you sent me are um, maybe a little bit above my head, but I get the gist of it. And this is
Mhm.
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So our material, the acronym we use for it is MAP, and so that stands for microporous annealed particle. So MAP scaffolds, microporous annealed particle scaffolds, and so what they are, we make these tiny spheres. They're like 100 micrometers long, so really small. Um, these tiny spheres, and they're made of hydrogel. Um, Hydrogel is like it's really similar to Jello. Like it's like a gelatin is even like a common base for a hydrogel. We don't use it, but that's a common one. Um, they're like these Jello spheres, pretty much, and we make them so that they can attach to each other. We add these other annealing agents. They cause chemical reaction to occur, so everything attaches, and so then you end up with this scaffold of a bunch of spheres attached to each other. Um, and if you to help like imagine what that looks like, if you imagine like a gumball machine, like a bunch of gumballs like sitting in the top, that's kind of how it is. Like a bunch of spheres all kind of packed together as close as they can be. And if you think about that gumball machine, you think there's a lot of space in there. Like they can't, it's not like if you had a bunch of rectangular blocks, they could fit in perfectly with no space between. The spheres, a bunch of spheres together, there's a bunch of pores, like a bunch of space in between. And so that space is that space alone is sort of the secret sauce of why this material works different from other materials, and kind of a big benefit it has is that's also the M, microporous. We've got these micropores in there, and um, the any surrounding tissue. So like if it's a skin wound, all the surrounding cells. If it's a stroke, all the surrounding cells in the brain. Because of that space, they're able to grow into the scaffold really easily. We can also attach things to those spheres that will make the cell be like, hey, I want to grow in there. Look at that. Look at that thing. And then they'll kind of grow towards it. Things like that. Things that allow the cells to grab onto our spheres really easily. And I guess to give a little more context on why this is like an improvement over what's been before, hydrogels, the like Jello type materials, those are really common for a lot of like our biomedical engineering, like promoting regeneration, a lot of this field. But in the past, they were typically just like kind of blocks of hydrogel, like a block of Jello, and you would kind of put that in a wound, and it would provide structure because instead of air, there's something there, and then the surrounding cells can kind of degrade that hydrogel and kind of break into it. But it's harder, and so it's not as easy for the surrounding cells to sort of break in there. And so that's kind of where our map scaffolds are, like spherical, granular scaffolds. Um, that's sort of their secret sauce, I think, is their porosity.
Okay, so it's a big improvement over previous maybe types, or maybe not even types, but just previous iterations of this because it's injectable, or what makes this like particularly unique as a
Hmm.
new substance?
Yeah, so that's another part of it. So I mentioned if you have a block of Jello, you can't really like inject that anywhere. Like you can't suck it up into a thing to inject most of the time unless it's got like a really particular property that allows that.
It's
Um,
hard to put a block of Jello into the brain.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and so this one, these spheres, even though if you took one sphere, it's similar to a block, like it's a solid thing. Since uh, they have to have some space between them. They're injectable, so you can. The way our stroke stuff works, there's a stroke. You load a syringe with all of those kind of spheres all packed together. Um, right before you inject them into the brain, you add the thing that's going to allow them to attach to each other. That doesn't happen instantly. It takes some time, and so sort of as that connection is happening, you inject into where the stroke is. I didn't really mention it earlier, but when there's a stroke, uh, it creates kind of a nice pocket for something to be injected in. Like all of that dead and dying tissue, it's still there, but it's not solid brain. Like it's not a hole, but it's almost like it's called the infarct. It's like a little area that you can inject something into. Um, so you inject all the spheres that are in the process of connecting to each other into the brain, and then sort of in that spot, they all connect to make what's similar to a block, honestly. Like once the spheres all connect to each other, it's almost like a block, like it's a solid piece of jello effectively. Um, but if you were to zoom in on that block, there's a ton of space in there that allows the cells to grow. And our the earlier papers from this lab before I joined show that without attaching anything crazy to the spheres, even just having that structure alone in there, especially for the skin wounds, promotes regeneration. Like just the micropore structure with like one thing attached to allow the cells to grab on to the sphere, that alone promotes regeneration. And you can take it further by attaching even more like pro repair things to the spheres too.